I'm Hadas Gold in Jerusalem, and this is CNN.
Bogus, idiotic, crazy, bullshit, completely nuts. That's how Trump insiders described the former president's election lies to the January 6th committee. It was all part of today's public hearing, and CNN's Ryan Nobles has the highlights right now.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
Donald Trump's false claim that he won the 2020 election before all the votes were counted. A lie he continues to peddle, but one that some of his closest advisors told the January 6th committee they didn't believe, like his attorney general.
He's become detached from reality. If he
his campaign manager.
I didn't think what was happening was necessarily honest or professional.
And several top campaign lawyers.
I remember telling him that I didn't believe the Dominion allegations.
What they were proposing, I thought was nuts. And the theory was also completely nuts.
Trump's insistence that he won the election despite a wide range of evidence to the contrary is at the core of the committee's argument that he purposefully and potentially criminally worked to prevent the certification of the election results, a conspiracy that ultimately led to his supporters storming the Capitol on January 6th.
I told him that the stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was bullshit. I mean, that the claims of fraud were bullshit. That all the early claims that I understood were completely bogus and silly.
Bill Stepien, Trump's former campaign manager, was expected to appear live, but after his wife went into labor, he bowed out. The committee playing excerpts from his explosive deposition instead, with him detailing election night in the White House.
And did anybody who was a part of that conversation disagree with your message?
Yes.
Who was that?
The president disagreed with that.
The result was a methodical rejection of Trump's claims of fraud delivered by his campaign and White House advisors. Respected professionals who said that Trump stopped talking to them and starting trusting people like Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell.
There were two groups of, we called them kind of my team and Rudy's team. I didn't mind being characterized as being part of Team Normal.
Election experts and state election officials also testified that there was zero chance Trump won the election.
There was no credible evidence of fraud produced by the Trump campaign or his supporters.
The committee also drawing a line between Trump's big lie and his fundraising.
The claims that the election was stolen were so successful. President Trump and his allies raised $250 million.
The committee finding donors were told the money would be used to fight voter fraud that didn't exist. The last email sent to donors a half hour before the Capitol was breached.
And Don, we're really just at the beginning of these hearings that will take place throughout the month of June, 7 in total. The third hearing that's scheduled for Wednesday is designed to specifically focus on Trump's attempt to infiltrate the Department of Justice with the goal of installing a puppet attorney general who would do the job of investigating these thin claims of voter fraud. There's also the possibility that members of Congress that were involved in that effort may be revealed as being part of that plot. Don?
Ryan Nobles, thank you very much. I want to bring in now political commentator Charlie Dent and global affairs analyst Susan Glasser. I almost gave you a new name, calling you Charlie Dean. Good to see you both. Good evening. Susan, so much to talk about, but I want to start with the committee chair, Benny Thompson, telling reporters that the committee will not make any criminal referrals to the DOJ or Trump or anyone else. But the Vice Chair Liz Cheney contradicting that. This is what she's tweeting tonight, as a matter of fact. January 6th Select Committee has not issued a conclusion regarding potential criminal referrals. We will announce a decision on that at an appropriate time. Susan, what's up with this? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable in the middle of their big rollout of their long-awaited hearings, right? It's been a year and a half since January 6th, and here we are talking about their disagreement with each other. It's not just Liz Cheney versus the chairman. You see several other members tonight as well. I think Adam Schiff and another congresswoman also saying, wait a minute, we haven't decided. Although to a certain extent, Don, I'm not sure how consequential this disagreement really is. In the end, it will be up to Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and his Justice Department, whether or not they proceed with charges. Congress would have an advisory role at best in this. Obviously, it's the evidence itself that matters in the legal determination, none of which is really in the hands of this Congressional Select Committee anyways.
I want to bring in Laura Coates, a former prosecutor here, and get her a take on this. Laura, hello to you. Is the Select Committee presenting a strong legal case? Because we know the Attorney General Garland is watching.
He is watching, and I think that they are presenting a case that thematically outlines really where the prosecutors, if they were inclined to pursue charges, would pick up. Remember, they're outlining the notion of what he was doing, what he was engaged in, the notion of trying to, based on fraudulent information, knowing that it was fraud, try to convince people of the big lie. Now, there is actually a criminal hook to this if they're inclined. That's the idea of trying to defraud the people of the United States. You have to have this agreement, essentially, that says, here's what we're going to do. That part, I think, is still out there to be proven. But you have to have an official proceeding. Here it was, the certification of the count, and the intention to use fraud or deceptive means for some improper purpose or some corrupt purpose, and then commit an overt act in front of it. Every single time he's tried to find instances of fraud, knowing that there were no fraudulent issues to actually discuss, he was essentially committing a kind of overt act, a tweet, a speech, a conversation, a plan that ran totally counter to what everyone said. And, you know, there's really no inference that can be made that he actually believed, in fact, perhaps, or knew that this was somehow true, because he had his attorney general talk about it, Don. He had his own advisors, his campaign manager, his campaign lawyers. You had all of this happening, and yet he still searched for.
I mean, how was it 60 times
yes,
that it
exactly.
was? Right, that it was
62
litigated, right?
times.
Yeah.
He exhausted legal remedies, and why that's important, Don, you're right to point that out, is because even if he didn't have the criminal intent to do something wrong, he would still have known, based on all the certifications, all of the exhausted legal remedies, that he was improperly trying to retain office. That is part of the calculus as well.
Charlie, the former AG Bill Barr, he may not have been sitting in the hearing room today, but he was the star witness with videos like this one. Here it is.
There was never an indication of interest in what the actual facts were. I was somewhat demoralized because I thought, boy, if he really believes this stuff, he has, lost contact with he's become detached from reality. If he really believes this stuff.
If he really believed this stuff, he'd become detached from reality. What message does that send coming from someone who carried Trump's water for so long, Charlie?
Well, it tells me that the former president is not only detached from reality, but believes his own bull. He thinks that he believes he's never wrong, and he's never in doubt, and he's not going to let facts or evidence get in the way of his argument. And so I think he's just deluded himself. What we witnessed here from Bill Barr and some of the other Republicans who supported Donald Trump, these people have called him out and said the emperor has no clothes. They often didn't say that, but they're saying it now. And it's a darn good thing. But the real sad part about this is it just, if someone tells an easily disprovable lie over and over again, sadly, too many people are going to believe it. And that's what's happening. And it's undermining faith and confidence in our electoral system. It's hard to sustain a democracy this way.
It's really interesting. I kept saying, what are the evidence I think is pretty compelling. What are they going to say? It's a deep state. It's never Trumpers. It's, rhinos. It's like, but these are the people the president hired, the closest people, his closest advisors, and his family members, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, look, you just wonder, at what point is there going to be a family intervention here? I mean, this dysfunction it's unhealthy, it's obsessive, and it's destructive to our country and to the party, to the election system. I mean, it's just wrong on so many levels. Everybody knows it. And I think it's just, we're well past the point of people calling it out and, just going to have to reject this man. He is a diminished figure, thankfully, but he's still a dangerous one. And until enough people who know better continue to shout from the rooftops, I'm afraid that, we're going to continue to see this spiral of our democratic institutions in a very bad direction.
Susan, I have another soundbite for you. This is Bill Barr describing a moment leaving the Oval Office. This is after Trump was talking about his fraud claims. Here it is.
Office, Jared was there with Dan Scavino, who ran the president's social media, and who I thought was a reasonable guy and believe is a reasonable guy. And I said, how long is he going to carry on with this stolen election stuff? Where's this going to go? And by that time, Meadows had caught up with me and leaving the office, and caught up with me and said that he said, look, I think that he's becoming more realistic and knows that there's a limit to how far he can take this. And then Jared said, yeah, we're working on this. We're working on it.
I mean, so, Susan, seriously, all these people around Trump knew that these were lies. They didn't say anything publicly at the time. They aren't stopping all the other Republicans who are running on his lies right now. It's just lies on top of lies, and it's just compounded. And to Charlie's point, like, what the hell? Like, what?
Well, first of all, Don, right, you got to remember, these people, not only are they lying to the American public, they're lying to each other, they're backstabbing each other, they're, each playing a different underhanded game. And that comes through so clearly in that clip that you just played from former Attorney General Barr. Mark Meadows, Trump's fourth and final chief of staff, an important figure in all this. And really, he seemed to be actively misleading Bill Barr in that conversation, misleading establishment Republicans. At the same time, the evidence that's come out from the committee has shown pretty clearly that Mark Meadows was an active participant in creating the conspiracy and helping Trump to fuel his election lies. And, to me, it was a snake pit, the Trump White House, and they were snake pit with each other as well as lying to the American public.
It's astounding. Stick around. We got a lot more to talk about with today's hearing. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
It's totally covered in solar, also the side panels, and we have this patented proprietary solar technology which we developed over the last couple of years. And this vehicle here is recharging on average per day 10 miles. In a week it's 70 miles through the sun. Additionally, of course, I have a battery on board. I can recharge it just as a regular electric vehicle, but we have this convenient feature. It's taking away this fear of recharging, this fear of range anxiety, and making it more convenient, energy efficient, and you're saving costs. Energy is coming from the sun for free. And the second pillar is selling and licensing this technology to B2B customers. Trucks, train, buses, camper van. There's huge potential in this market to make the whole logistic industry more greener.
Forced labor looks different in different countries and different sectors. My name is Jonas Astrup. I'm the Chief Technical Advisor for the ILO Third-Party Monitoring Project in Uzbekistan. And I've been based in Tashkent for the last 4 years. Uzbekistan is the 6th largest producer of cotton in the world, but the cotton harvest in Uzbekistan is the world's largest recruitment effort, with approximately 2 million people picking cotton every year from September to November. And ILO has been monitoring the cotton harvest in Uzbekistan for child labor since 2013 and for child labor and forced labor since 2015 under an agreement with the World Bank. We have witnessed incredible changes during that time. 2 million children out of child labor and 500,000 adults out of forced labor. We have seen wages increased by over 600%. We have seen the number of labor inspectors doubled and perpetrators punished. Forced labor and child labor is now a criminal offense in Uzbekistan. We've seen awareness raising campaigns to make sure that people are aware of their rights, and we have seen a liberalization and a privatization of the agricultural system. There's still work to do in Uzbekistan, but I think it's fair to say that Uzbekistan is a success story in the world of work.
On the next Living Golf. Discover the history of the sport in Sweden. How do they keep producing some of the world's best golfers? Hear from rising stars.
I think it's just more fun when a Swede wins.
Then visit the region's flagship event, the Scandinavian Mixed, and sit down with Europe's next Ryder Cup captain, Henrik Stenson.
This is where it all started for me.
Living Golf, Saturday on CNN, in association with Gulf Saudi. Trends, tech, new, Marketplace Asia.
Travel and tourism in Asia, how airlines new and old are navigating a post-pandemic world.
Marketplace Asia, Saturday on CNN.
We share this place, we all belong.
Back now with Laura Coates, Charlie Dent, and Susan Glasser. Okay, so Laura, what does all of this tell you about Trump's intent, his state of mind, that people within his inner circle told him the truth and he still wouldn't stop?
I think that it's very clear, just like what Chairman Benny Thompson spoke of on that very first day of the hearings, that on the morning of January 6th, he intended to still be the president of the United States. And that would be an improper thing to do, given the fact that he was already aware that there was not widespread fraud sufficient to overturn the election. There had already been certified results. He did not have a legal basis to continue to challenge, although they'd already been exhausted over 60 times. And he did not have a constitutional way of trying to have the vice president of the United States undermine those electors. And so in that moment, you were clear on the intent. The question working backwards was, how did he form that? Did he truly believe that he had the right, or did he just want it to be true? That's a huge divide. But either way, if he had criminal intent done, or if he remained for an improper purpose, you have the foundations about the idea of using fraud to try to deceive the public, which is unlawful and also anti-democratic.
Yeah. Laura, let me ask you this. Because you have, the people on one side, you want to see Trump in handcuffs and he's going to go to jail, right? And then you have the folks on the other side said, no one cares about this. We should be doing gas prices. Was there anything in this that you said, listen, we can't control and I don't think we should even be concerned with how this is going to land. What are people going to think? Because they're going to think what they want to think. But with your legal mind, did you see anything in here that has been presented so far that Trump has any sort of legal exposure, whether it's defrauding the people with, giving money, or whether it's him knowing that it was a lie and then going out there and then it ends in an insurrection?
Well, he has legal exposure, and it's actually manifesting right now in Fulton County, Georgia, based on his pursuit of votes that he already, according to what we've learned so far, knew not to exist. That also expands to the notion of there's a lot of time being spent about the Proud Boys. Now, of course, we're not yet hearing any information about him being charged alongside of those already indicted people. But the idea seems to be floating in the air in some respects that there were some directives that were given. Now, they have not proven this as of yet. We're only in the second day of hearings, and I'm not going to get ahead of my skis on that notion. But in terms of exposure, what is so important here is this notion that this is an ongoing threat to our democracy. And I did question earlier today on our programming, I questioned Congressman Aguilar, who's a member of the committee, as to whether the focus, it seemed to be almost singularly on Donald Trump, was going to really deter people from understanding that there was a collective thought process about the impact on our democracy. But he answered the question, as is the committee as well, talking about that this was really about democracy overall and figuring out whether really that was a dry run for future elections.
Yeah. I want to play more now from the hearings. This is what Trump's campaign manager, Bill Stepien, said that he told Trump about his prospects after the election. Listen to this.
Very, very, very bleak. We told him, the group that went over there outlined, my belief in chances for success at this point, and then we pegged it at 5, maybe 10% based on recounts that were either were automatically initiated or could be initiated based on realistic legal challenges, not all the legal challenges that eventually were pursued. But it was my belief is that it was a very, very, 5 to 10% is not a very good optimistic outlook.
So Susan Glasser, when Stepien wasn't telling Trump that he wanted to hear about the election results, he found someone else. Isn't this part of the pattern with the former president?
Yeah, absolutely, Don. The story in many ways of the whole 4 years of the Trump presidency is him over and over and over again rebuffing those who brought him bad news or news he didn't want, trying to get himself. At one point in our book that's coming out this fall about Trump, I was just looking at this again today. One of his former senior officials is talking to him about who's going to be the new White House chief of staff. He had 4, and Trump says, "I want a yes man. I want a yes man." And so in the end, the yes man that he was ended up with was Rudy Giuliani. But, Bill Stepien is no hero either, and that's what makes this so complicated. He's never spoken out publicly, although his account has, broadly speaking, been known before. He portrays himself on Team Normal, but did Donald Trump just change radically on November 3rd, 2020? Come on, he was preparing and talking about a rigged election before there were any votes even cast. And of course, Bill Stepien knew that and worked for him and had no problem doing so.
Yeah, he's talking about, I've been here since the very beginning, since he went down the escalator in 2015. He was talking about a rigged election then, but then when he won, all of a sudden it wasn't rigged. So there you go.
Don, can we just say something about the cynicism of all this?
Yeah.
The way people have monetized this lie and have grifted on it. Bill Stepien, I respect him as a campaign person. He's just acknowledged that the president lost, and presumably the president's lying about losing. But that's not stopping him from working for a candidate who's running against Liz Cheney, against Liz because, she's pushed back on the lie and the insurrection and all that led up to
But the candidate he's working for has run campaign on the lie, correct?
Correct. And so he's still monetizing it. And that's what's happening. It's not just him, but there are plenty of people who are monetizing this lie, even though they know it is a lie, and this is all nonsense. And this is what makes me so cynical about politics today, that how can you do that with a straight face? Say it's a lie, in front of the whole world, and then go out there and monetize it. And I wish somebody would, too bad he couldn't be there in person today, so somebody could have asked him that question. Then why are you working for a candidate, against Liz over here who's pushing back?
But that's why it happens, Charlie. Yeah. It happens because people, obviously they lie and they grift on it. And then, as you said, the members of your own party, the Republican Party, won't call them out. And if you do call them out, then you're called rhino, right? They start to politicize it. You're called rhino, or you're a liberal, or you're a Democrat, or you're whatever it is that they want to call you, which they think is a pejorative, which they use as a pejorative. And so that's how it becomes a lie. And so they tried to stem the criticism by making the people who criticize it out to be against the former president or Republicans, when those folks, whether they're Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever, are only telling the truth. Where am I at? Who am I lie? Where's the lie in that? Anyone? Bueller? Yeah. No?
Can't complain.
I must be right then.
You're right, Don. And look,
well,
they call people like me a bedwetter.
It comes back to the legislative purpose.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to drop the bedwetter story. Hold on, Charlie. I don't want to do that. But let me just say, talking about the legislative purpose of all this, here's the thing. Their purpose, in many respects, is to figure out the ways in which the existing laws are being exploited or whether there are shortcomings within them, if they need to recommend to the entire Congress ways in which to codify a way to close those things. The things you've mentioned today, Charlie, the idea of monetizing the lie. There's First Amendment protections. There's also campaign finance laws. Is there a gap between that to be able to exploit and capitalize on these made-up sort of marketing tools of Operation Election Defense that doesn't go there? These are ways to do so. Electoral Count Act as well. Yeah. There are things that this committee, short of prosecution, can be doing to promote and further the notion that they are trying to flex their legislative and oversight function. It's not a criminal prosecution, but that's a way to have a nation of laws.
It's going to take the people to do that. It's going to have to take the American people, the voters, to do that. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you, Susan, Thanks. Charlie, Laura. See you soon.
Thanks, Tom.
Trump family members appearing in the January 6 hearings through videotaped depositions, and they're distancing themselves from the former president's election fraud claims.
I don't know that I had a firm view as to what he should say in that circumstance. The results were still being counted.
I'm Salma Abdulaziz in Kyiv, and this is CNN.
We're here now at the home of one of the FSB team, and my name's Clarissa Ward. I work for CNN. Was it your team that poisoned Navalny?
It's just been a chaotic scene here.
People are so exhausted. Just gonna help her carry this bag.
We were just in the hospital. It was shocking. Why do you think India has been hit so badly? Scores of Taliban fighters, and just behind us, the U.S. Embassy.
Why does a small group of women asking for their right to be educated threaten you so much?
Raise your hand if you love school.
I'm the one who has to look them in the eye. Can I have your word? These people are depending on you.
You can hear gunshots every couple minutes. Now they're pressing in. They want desperately to tell their story.
I'm James Roby. I'm the Global Head of Environmental Sustainability at Capgemini. People often ask, why should businesses care about sustainability? Well, first of all, quite frankly, an unsustainable pathway is not going to be good for any business. Businesses are reliant on having consumers that will buy from them. They're reliant on having employees who want to work for them. Increasingly, all the stakeholders of the business are asking difficult questions. So businesses which aren't taking sustainability seriously essentially are going to be out of business. But in reality, it's never too late to start. A great way to start is by trying to understand your own impacts as an organisation, perhaps calculate your carbon footprint. Ultimately, we need everybody on this journey, so why not start today?
I am Nigerian by blood, British by birth, and American by residence. It is important to me that those same strands of inclusivity that flow through me are mirrored in the stories that we tell. One World is a place where Africa has an equal seat at the global table alongside Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Every continent has a voice, and where everyone watching has a stake in the global conversation.
One World with Zain Asher, tonight on CNN.
I'm David McKenzie in Cape Town, and this is CNN.
So the January 6th committee hearing more today from former President Trump's inner circle about his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. I want you to take a listen. This is what his daughter, Ivanka Trump, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, had to say when asked about Rudy Giuliani suggesting Trump outright lie and call the race for himself.
I don't know that I had a firm view as to what he should say in that circumstance. The results were still being counted.
Did you ever share, Mr. Kushner, your view of Mr. Giuliani? Did you ever share your perspective about him with the president?
I guess, yes.
Tell me what you said.
Basically, not the approach I would take if I was you.
Those comments follow testimony from Ivanka last week, where she said she accepted Attorney General William Barr, saying that there was no fraud to be found in the election. And tonight, the former president issuing a 12-page response to today's hearing. However, he didn't address allegations from the committee about personally benefiting from donations that were supposed to go toward election fraud claims. Let's discuss. CNN contributor Michael D'Antonio, the author of The Truth About Trump. Sorry, I'm trying to keep from laughing, eh, Mike?
The truth.
It's crazy.
Connected with Trump. Can you believe it?
It's so outrageous. I can't believe that people still believe this man. It's just, I just think it's outrageous. There's so much evidence that points to he knew he was lying, right? He was told he was lying. The courts proved he was lying. He's still repeating the lie. And now you have his daughter. And you saw, she froze, right, when asked her opinion about whether she thought that Trump won or lost the election. What do you think was going on in her head at the
moment? Well, I think Jared froze as well when they asked him,
Homina.
Right, had you spoken to the president about this? You know, the trouble for Jared and Ivanka is that they both want to be considered part of Team Normal now, when they weren't on Team Normal for 4 years. So I think it's a stretch for all of us to believe that back then in November, December, they were the voices of reason. If that was the case, why did Jared go to the Middle East for much of that time? And where was Ivanka's voice during all of that time? It's really a case of them wanting to have their cake and eat it too.
But don't you think this is significant because all of these are family members in Trump's inner circle that we are hearing from? These aren't never-Trumpers. These aren't Democrats. These are his closest allies and
You're absolutely
advisors.
Right. I'm waiting.
Family members.
I'm waiting now for Melania to speak out against Ivanka because the two of them had kind of a feud when Melania came on the scene. So there's no love lost between the two of them. And then are Eric and Don Jr. now thinking, well, I've got a shot at being the best child now because Ivanka has obviously abandoned her role, and now there's place for them to move up. You know, the rivalries with this crowd are endless.
Well, listen, you have been talking about how Ivanka and Jared have been trying to promote themselves as post-White House figures, but you say that this comes across as really pathetic. How is it?
Well, it's very disingenuous. I don't think anyone believes that they didn't know that Donald Trump had lost the election. I think that they understood before the election that he was going to lose, and they understood what he was doing back in May of 2000 when he was setting the table for this claim. Anyone who's been around Donald Trump any length of time knows that he always anticipates the whining that he's going to do.
In May of 2000?
Yes, in May of 2000, he started saying, well, it's probably going to be rigged. It's probably going to be stolen.
You mean 2020?
In 2020.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
He might have done it then too. I mean, certainly before the 2016 election, he made the same crazy claims. He's always looking for this trap door, this way of saying, yeah, but I didn't really lose. I was cheated. It doesn't matter whether it's a game of golf or it's our democracy. It's all the same.
It doesn't matter if it's on the level as a game of golf or a local election or a national election.
Right.
He's always going to look for that. This is Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, her opening statement at today's hearing. Watch.
Will also show that the Trump campaign used these false claims of election fraud to raise hundreds of millions of dollars from supporters who were told their donations were for the legal fight in the courts. But the Trump campaign didn't use the money for that. The big lie was also a big ripoff.
So talk to me about the big ripoff, because that was interesting. We had been reporting on that, but no one had stated it as clearly as you heard today about the big ripoff. It wasn't just enough to be an attack on our democracy, but he was intent on grifting the American people as well. Stealing money from the people who support him?
Precisely. I mean, think about what's happened to those folks. So they've been swindled politically. They've been swindled intellectually, swindled emotionally, swindled out of their money. And at least one, Ashley Babbitt, was swindled out of her life. You know, all these people who went to this crazy attack on the Capitol were sent there by Donald Trump through his lengthy propaganda campaign. They really believed in him. Many still believe in him. And this is the greatest abuse, I think, that he's perpetrated, is against the people who actually believe in him.
We'll see what happens with this particular claim, but it was to as I said, we've been reporting on it, but to see it laid out in front of a committee like that and the evidence of it was quite stunning, I think. Thank you, Michael D'Antonio, The Truth About Trump. Appreciate it. A rare bipartisan agreement in Congress, senators reaching a framework deal on gun legislation, but it doesn't go as far as Democrats want. One senator who helped negotiate the agreement joins me. She's next.
June 20th, a CNN concert event. Let's celebrate, educate, and lift every voice. Juneteenth, a global celebration for freedom. Live from the Hollywood Bowl, only on CNN.
This is the screen where it happens. The moments that can change the world.
These are the faces we see, the voices we empower. This is the work that continues, who we are today and what we can become.
This is journalism that reflects the world we live in.
Bollywood, a protracted pandemic fractured this more than a century-old industry, sending profits tumbling as in-theater audiences stayed away. Analysts say India is still watching Bollywood at a record rate. They're simply doing so online.
I think we've reached significant scale during the pandemic.
what we've seen is that the top 30 to 40 million, the premium audiences, they've taken extensively to OTT streaming.
Analysts say India's rapidly growing mobile internet population is behind much of this growth. Here in India, local homegrown players continue to thrive in the market.
Krishna Bhagwan.
Streaming giant ZEE5 claims to have the most offerings in South Asia.
Going digital was on the back of wanting to really connect directly with the consumer.
We've missed the globetrotting and adventures, and we're longing to get out and go.
This is living.
Uncovering a city's DNA.
Look at that.
Meeting people who will share its secrets.
It's going to be very cold.
And making discoveries that wow.
We're not doing that again.
It's a world of wonder.
Gorgeous.
Now, go and see it. Saturday on CNN, in association with Turkish Airlines.
I'm Becky Anderson, 200 meters above the city of Dubai. This is CNN.
They've made a deal. A bipartisan group of senators announcing that they've agreed on new gun legislation framework, including grants for state red flag laws and enhanced background checks for people under 21. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, endorsing the proposal today, calling it meaningful progress.
If you put illegal guns on our streets or into the hands of violent offenders, the Justice Department will spare no resource to hold you accountable. The Justice Department is committed to doing our part to end the plague of gun violence, and we strongly support Congress's efforts to do so as well.
You know, this could be the most significant federal action on gun violence in nearly 3 decades. Senators Debbie Stabenow and Roy Blunt led the mental health initiative in the proposal, and here with me now is Senator Stabenow. Thank you for joining, Senator. I really appreciate it. This is important stuff, and I just listed some things that are in this framework, but there are lots of things that are not in this framework, like renewing the assault weapons ban, raising the legal age to purchase assault weapons, and more. Do you feel this framework goes far enough?
Well, Don, first of all, it's great to be back with you. And I have to say, this is meaningful. Is it everything that I think that needs to be done? No, I would support a ban on assault weapons and comprehensive background checks and a number of other things. But I will say that having comprehensive background checks on those aged 21 or under is important. That essentially creates a waiting period. And the requirements in this agreement also say that if you have an 18-year-old that goes out and buys an assault weapon or two, like in Uvalde, that the police have to be notified that that happened. And that will make a difference. Tightening up on gun traffickers and tightening the gun dealer licenses and the red flag laws that you're talking about. And on the other side that you mentioned, that Senator Blunt and I have been leading and working on for years, the mental health investments are transformative. I mean, it is absolutely transformative because what we're doing is committing to comprehensive, quality, community behavioral health services, mental health and addiction in communities across America and funding it like healthcare, not just grants, stop and start.
Okay, so listen, this is just a framework. The legislation is not actually written yet. Do you think things are going to change as this bill is written? And are you confident that Republicans are going to continue to support it?
Well, I was all day today talking to folks about language. I'm very involved in writing the course mental health pieces of this, talking to colleagues about the other pieces of it. And people are very focused. Members are very focused on getting this right in the language, getting it done as quickly as possible. Every day counts. And so I am confident that from what I've seen so far, that there's enough people in the United States Senate, not everybody, but there's enough that are serious about this that we can get it done.
Okay. The reason I asked if you were sure that it's, one of the reasons I should say that I asked you if you're sure that Republicans are going to support it, because this is personal for you. As I understand, your father needed some help, but the support for mental health issues just wasn't there at the time, right?
No question. And I think for so many of us, whether that is a gun violence issue, and by the way, the majority of guns are used in suicides. And so there's a lot of ways in which gun violence is going on in this country. And when we talk about the mental health side of things, you're talking about helping people so they don't feel hopeless and commit suicide. You know, my dad was bipolar and didn't get the services he needed. I was in a small rural community in Michigan, and I saw what happened when he didn't have help and then when he did have help. And it was incredibly different. And so what we're talking about is across this country and in schools. Another important part of this is making sure that we have mental health services in our schools for children and support for teachers as well.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned schools, because there are other parts of the country, governors are making their own, states are making their own moves, right? Governor DeWine, Mike DeWine, signed a bill into law just today that reduces the hours of training school staff need to carry a gun from 700 hours to 24 hours. I mean, what effect do you think this is going to have on his state?
You know, Don, I thought I misread that when I first saw it. I don't know what to say. When you lower the training for people, you want more people with guns in the school, urging teachers to get guns, and then you dramatically, not just a little bit, they went, what did you say, from 700 to whatever, 24 hours, whatever it was, like dramatically lower the training. How in the world does that make sense with the situation that we're in right now? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Well, you were right, from 700 hours to 24 hours, and we'll see how it plays out. Let's hope for the best with this one. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you joining.
Well, I have to say, Don, we want to hope and then we have to act. You know, thoughts and prayers, not enough. It's time to act.
I completely agree. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Dozens of men suspected of having ties with a white nationalist group arrested in Idaho after planning a riot at a Pride event. Now police say they're getting death threats.
Connect the World with Becky Anderson.
It all starts here. Changing, fighting, creating, connecting. That's why we're here. We live here, we work here, we're from here, and we'll go wherever the story takes us. I'm Becky Anderson in Tehran. We are in Jerusalem. Real news that shapes our world. Exploring not just what's going on, but why.
I just want to press you on one further point.
Getting perspective on this region from this region. Places that many of us know, but few of us get to see. Observing countries on the move, still rooted in tradition. It all starts here, and that's why we're here, bringing you the world from our Middle Eastern hub.
Connect the World with Becky Anderson, today on CNN.
This Chinese national treasure is more endangered than the panda. Its lichen-covered forest home at risk. In the high-altitude woodlands of southwest China's Yunnan province, the Yunnan golden monkeys, or black snub-nosed monkeys, are fighting for survival. Almost 100 monkeys are killed by hunters every year in the region, according to the Nature Conservancy.
Villagers rely on mountains. In the old days, they would often climb up the mountains for hunting and other activities such as gathering and cutting trees.
But as part of a forest monitoring campaign, Xu Hao trains local villagers to patrol the monkey's habitat and look for old wire traps.
This is the wire trap. Villagers tie it to the tree and use this to catch some animals.
His team has installed over 100 infrared cameras in the forest to monitor the monkeys, and golden monkey populations in the region are finally increasing, says Li Peng.
This monkey is one of the only kind of animals living in this high altitude. So the existence of this species is kind of important and critical to the whole world.
Tonight, an Idaho police chief says he and others in his department are receiving death threats. That's after they arrested 31 men believed to be linked to a white nationalist group who law enforcement officials say had been planning to riot at a pride event. Sarah Seidner is in Idaho with the story.
To witnesses, they appeared as a little army, 31 men, all dressed in similar outfits, all with their faces covered. Police say they were prepared to riot as the city celebrates Pride Month.
The information that we had would lead any reasonable officer to assume that there might be criminal activity afoot, based not only on the 911 call, but the information contained within the call.
Police say they were stuffed into a moving van, caught with shields, weapons, and at least one smoke bomb as they headed toward downtown Coeur d'Alene.
I have no doubt in my mind that had that van stopped at the park or much near the park, that we still would have ended up in a riot situation.
One by one, police unmasked the men. One of the men, police say, is their leader, Thomas Russo. He, along with his group Patriot Front, came from out of town and brought with them a nasty racist past, one CNN has reported on over the years.
These were members of the hate group Patriot Front. These were not Antifa in disguise, nor were they FBI members in disguise.
This group didn't just come out of nowhere. They're not new. Researchers that track hate say Patriot Front is an offshoot of a group called Vanguard America, whose alleged leader, Thomas Russo, attended the White Supremacists Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville.
Jews will not